Okay, let's picture this for a second. You're doing everything a parent is supposed to do, right? You're fighting to protect your kid from harassment at school, sending the emails, showing up at meetings, you name it. And then, bam, out of nowhere, a letter shows up, and it says you're banned from campus. Your heart just drops. You're probably thinking, wait, can they even do that? Well, in this explainer, we're going to get into exactly that. We'll break down when a school can ban you, when they absolutely can't, and what you can do to fight back.
So how does something like this even happen? Let's walk through a real-world scenario that, might hit a little too close to home for some of you. It all kicks off with a single, official-looking piece of paper, a letter that can just turn a family's world upside down.
Just look at this. This is the kind of letter that makes your stomach just clench. And notice the language they use. It's so vague. Safety concerns. I mean, what does that even mean? What concerns? Whose concerns? And what are you supposed to do about it? The letter gives you absolutely nothing to work with.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When a school bans a parent who's been speaking up and they use this safety excuse, you have to ask, is this really about keeping people safe? Or is this just a way to shut you up? Let's dig in.
So let me tell you about a real case. There was a mother in San Diego, and her son, a young black student, was dealing with racial harassment. So she did all the things you're told to do. She sent emails. She filed a formal complaint. She spoke up at board meetings. She even got a lawyer involved. She was using her voice to fight for her kid, and every single one of those actions is a legally protected right.
So what did the school do in response to all this advocacy? Well, just 1 week after her attorneys sent a formal demand letter, she gets a letter of her own, banned from campus. The timing here is just so important. It's a huge piece of this puzzle, and it's what we're going to get into next.
All right, let's really dissect this whole tactic of using safety as a reason to ban a parent. We're going to peel back the layers of that official-sounding language and look at the hard evidence to see what's really going on behind the scenes.
This timeline, it tells you the whole story without needing many words. On the one hand, you see this parent persistently and legally fighting for her son. And on the other, you see the school's response, which ends with a campus ban. The fact that these things happen so close together is a massive red flag.
And this brings us to this key legal concept, temporal proximity. I know, it sounds super technical, but all it really means is that timing is everything. Seriously, if you complain about something on Monday and then get banned on Tuesday, the law looks at that and says, that's pretty suspicious. The closeness of those events is considered powerful evidence of retaliation. And this is a huge help for parents because it shifts the burden of proof. Now the school has to prove it wasn't payback.
And then, the smoking gun. This is from an actual internal email from the superintendent that came out later. It revealed the real reason for the ban. It had nothing to do with safety. It was because she was making us look bad. This is what the law calls a pretext, a fake reason given to hide the real, illegal one.
Okay, so we've seen how schools can twist their authority to try and silence parents. But look, that's not to say they don't have a real need to keep campuses safe. Of course they do. The real question is, where's the line? When is their action legit? And when does it cross over into a legal retaliation?
And this is such a critical distinction to understand. A legitimate legal ban has to be based on something concrete, like actual documented threats. It's not about whether your tone made someone uncomfortable, it's about a real risk. And even then, you have rights. You have the right to something called due process, which means they have to tell you what you're accused of and give you a chance to defend yourself.
So, if you're ever facing something like this, here's a mental checklist you can run through. A lawful ban has to be specific and fair. It's got to be based on evidence, not just someone's feelings. And it absolutely must include a clear way for you to appeal the decision. If the ban you're dealing with doesn't tick these boxes, there's a very good chance it's illegal.
All right, so what do you actually do if you find yourself in this nightmare situation? How do you fight back? Well, the good news is you're not powerless. You have options. So in this next part, we're going to lay out a step-by-step playbook for how to challenge a retaliatory ban and stand up for your rights. This is your game plan, 5 steps. Let's break them down. First, document absolutely everything. Make that detailed timeline of your advocacy and the school's actions. That's your evidence. Second, call out that temporal proximity. Literally say in your emails, this ban came just days after I did X. Third, demand due process. Put it in writing. Please provide the specific allegations, the evidence you have, and the appeals process. Fourth, look for selective enforcement.
Are other parents who complain about, say, the sports budget getting banned? If not, that's a huge point in your favor. And finally, file a complaint with the Office for Civil Rights. That gets an independent investigation started and really puts the pressure on the school.
I want to zoom out for a minute and talk about the bigger picture here. Being banned from your kid's school, that's not just some small inconvenience. It can be a really traumatic thing to go through. But this framework we just walked through, it can help you transform that trauma into a really powerful tool.
Think about it like this. When you're first banned, you're hit with all these emotions: anger, frustration, injustice. But emotions alone don't win legal fights. By documenting your case, building that timeline, and demanding your rights, you're basically translating your experience into the language of the law. You're building a case that the school's lawyers simply cannot ignore. You stop being just an angry parent and become a plaintiff with a rock-solid claim.
Let me just ask you this. If a school puts up with a parent who is yelling and screaming about the football team's budget, but then bans a parent who uses the exact same tone to fight for their child's civil rights, is that really about safety, or is it about something else entirely? That's what selective enforcement is. And yes, it is a form of discrimination. So, what's the real bottom line here? When a school retaliates against a parent, they're doing more than just silencing one person. They're sending a chilling message to every other parent. Don't speak up. Don't advocate. They're creating a culture of fear. And when that happens, they're failing in their most basic job, which is to protect all students. The true cost of that silence, it's impossible to measure. But by knowing your rights and by being ready to fight back, you can make sure every voice gets heard and every student is safe.